Being the first ever 3D Spider-Man title comes with a certain set of expectations. After all, everybody wants their favorite superhero done justice. To meet these expectations, Spider-Man targets the maximum possible feeling of authenticity, which in this context means jamming in absolutely every possible ounce of everything related to the character. Starting with the title screen featuring some dynamic art with an amazing remix of the 60s animated series theme. The main menu is centered around Spider-Man's logo with details like controllers hanging on a web. Every new story chapter is accompanied by a comic book style cover made specifically for the game. And in the levels, we collect existing Spider-Man comic books that we can then view in a special gallery. Speaking of galleries, there is also a character gallery voiced by none other than Stan Lee himself, who also does narration for some levels.
Welcome, true believers and newcomers alike. Spider-Man co-creator Stan Lee here. Once again, we find our hero Peter Parker, better known around the world as the Amazing Spider-Man, in a heap of trouble.
And it's not the only Spider-Man related voice. The game features cast from the 1994 and Unlimited animated series. While Spider-Man was eventually ported to more powerful platforms, originally it was created for PlayStation 1, and the visual style takes advantage of that. In the starting cutscene, the villains release a mysterious fog all over New York, which not only serves as a way to contextualize the view distance technical limitations, but also as a basis for striking visuals. Skyscrapers piercing through a bright yellow fog makes every building in the 3D scene and 2D backdrop pop, alongside the visually decent characters whose textures take advantage of the CRT TVs they'd be most likely viewed on. For example, Spider-Man in the PlayStation 1 version doesn't actually have any black webbing on his suit, but that's not that noticeable on period-appropriate screens. And when it comes to characters, it feels like the game followed the rule: if it's possible to cram someone in, they're going to be crammed. On the Allies side, we have Mary Jane, JJ, Black Cat, Daredevil, Human Torch, Punisher, Captain America. And the Rogue Gallery features Scorpion, Rhino, Venom, Lizard, Mysterio, Carnage and Doc Ock. The game also seems to follow a rule: if it's not possible to cram someone in, they're going to be referenced, potentially in a secret area.
Gee, I wonder who those pumpkin bombs belong to.
One might ask, is it possible to have a compelling plot with so many, often not that related characters? Well, not really. The story is pretty paper thin, with Spider-Man getting framed for the purposes of achieving world domination, but it doesn't really matter. The game knows that with these parameters, it can't really focus on the dramatic side of Spider-Man ethos. So instead, it focuses full force on the other side, camp, which the game openly admits having.
Ah, the cliché seedy waterfront warehouse.
And there is so much camp.
Hey, will you guys keep it down?
Hey, loosen up, kids! I'm on fire!
And oh, is it glorious. The writing is just unabashedly charming, with this interpretation of Venom being the absolute standout.
We're going to use his computer database.
Ooh, are we gonna surf the web?
Let's just go, okay? Here it is, the records room.
Surf the web, surf the web.
Shut up, Brock, we don't have time.
A healthy dose of visual humor also never hurts. And should you complete the game, which, let's be honest, doesn't really take long, there's an array of extras like special trials, as well as unlockable costumes with unique abilities, that we can take into story mode without restrictions after getting them. And just to top it all off in terms of references and unlockables, there is a secret what if mode. Like any what if Marvel story, it starts with what to describe in potential divergences.
You already know the outcome of Spider-Man's battle with Dr. Octopus, Carnage, and the symbiotes. But what if? What if this time, in this time stream, some of the events unfolded differently?
They ranged from new or changed lines, Easter eggs, character references, and just some fun little moments. And last but not least, there's the actual gameplay abilities. Admittedly, the implementation can feel clunky due to lack of any camera control other than recentering. The camera system is dynamic and it repositions accordingly depending on whether we're on a ceiling or walls or need to have a very specific view of a particular challenge, but sometimes it's not enough since auto-aim doesn't always do what we want. But the actual verb library, the actions we can perform in the game, is fantastic and largely designed to take advantage of the platform limitations. For example, web swinging is automatic. We can break it off at any moment to try and choose a new direction, but Spider-Man will go only towards an area he can reach to avoid flying into nothingness. Spider-Man can jump on mooks to start punching them, has a variety of web moves and constructs like web gloves and web dome, he can web zip, crawl, there's even spider sense. The arrows pointing towards the locations of enemies are supposed to be an extension of spider sense as well, however they won't show where Venom is, since according to the source material, he avoids spider sense. And it's these kinds of details that really add texture to all the references, Easter eggs, gameplay writing, therefore making the difference between a game with lots of Spider-Man stuff in it and a Spider-Man game. While Spider-Man the game does whatever Spider-Man the man can, even during the first playthrough the gameplay and mechanical flaws become more and more evident. We're talking about a game where each boss has a weird, barely blockable annoying move, but also a relatively easy to figure out dominant strategy. For example, Venom sometimes instantly grabs us to do some licking. It's very difficult to figure out when would be best to jump away. But he has literally no answer against web balls, so just shooting at him while he's visible is going to end the boss fight quickly and at a safe distance. Or Carnage, he's weak against Sonic Rays, and with some of his X-Arm attacks, trying to push him into the required zone can be quite annoying. However, once you do, it's enough to just web him little by little, essentially stun-locking him on the spot while his health is drained. And look, in the context of the mechanics being what they are, I don't mind these dominant strategies. The game actually feels beatable that way. But still, the flaws are evident here and throughout. And yet, that doesn't really pose much of an issue for the overall sense of enjoyment. The primary reason being the game's insane variety of setups and situations. Spider-Man really doesn't want us to do the same thing twice. The game starts with a set of small explorable levels where we get the hang of controls while approaching the bank. Then, in the bank, we need to save hostages without getting noticed. A lot of times, stealth in a game not built around it is far from good, but here it's fine since the rules are extremely simple, as long as you stay on the ceiling you aren't noticed. And even if you do get noticed, at some point the timer between that and the hostage's death is pretty lenient. This whole section ends with Spider-Man preventing destruction by hiding a bomb in what seems to be the most secure safe in the world.
Not this time, guys.
We then have to race towards the Daily Bugle before Scorpion gets rid of J. Jonah Jameson. After arriving there, the first boss battle commences. Again, there is a dominant strategy, but the attention to details within the office and how practically every object can be thrown is nice. After that, there's a massive set piece. We're out in the open again, but now we literally can't stand in one place. The police sent everything they've got to catch us. We're going to jump around rooftops while helicopters are destroying public property, climb buildings while making sure to not remain on wooden planks when they're blown to bits, avoid the machine gun targeting reticle, and then do some variations of those mechanics. It's just a massive ball of adrenaline going our way, and the game doesn't stop there, no. Time for the Rhino boss battle. It's enough to just lure him towards the electrical pillars, but hey, that already makes the boss battle different from Scorpion's. After that, there's a mission where we have to chase Venom and make sure we don't stray too far from him. There are two smart things this level does. One is making sure that from time to time Venom stops until we reach a specific trigger area, and the second is how by making Venom go in a circular fashion, the level is of respectable length while being not that big, which I'm sure helps from a technical perspective on the original PlayStation 1 platform. We've already covered the Venom boss battle in the alley, I suppose, and after that we get to the sewers. Now, in terms of setting and visuals, this is the part of the game where variety actually suffers. There are a bit too many sewer levels and it feels like they overstay their welcome. The damp environments get tiresome, even though in terms of gameplay, the levels are just as varied as ever. There's one where you have to jump from pipe to pipe, activate certain buttons while getting sorted by a lizardman, climb through a tunnel while avoiding water, solve a little door puzzle, survive a subway train ride, cross a small labyrinth among other things, and this whole segment ends with another Venom boss battle. Only now we have to make sure that Mary Jane doesn't get drowned by turning off levers that Venom keeps turning on. After the sewer section, we get to the Daily Bugle, which is invaded by symbiotes. And these enemies are really resistant against all our attacks and can be a pain to defeat, until we find the Fire Web power-ups. They trivialize everything and provide a temporary power rush. Go through a prolonged elevator ride, destroy symbiote generators, and end the whole segment with a boss battle against a giant Mysterio that's pretty straightforward. We have to shoot specific points on his body while avoiding obstacles. Out of all the boss battles in the game, this is probably the one that works as intended, since it doesn't feature any particularly annoying moves, nor a single dominant strategy, probably making it the best boss battle in the game. Then, after going through an abandoned warehouse, we get into an underwater lab full of turrets and other traps, and end the game with a boss gauntlet. First against Doc Ock, then Carnage, and then we have to escape from Monster Ock, Carnage's symbiote merged with the Good Doctor. An exciting, if somewhat stressful chase, where everything around us explodes while Monster Ock is absolutely relentless and keeps catching up. And then that's it, the game ends. It's not a particularly long experience perhaps, but considering what kind of a non-stop adrenaline rush it is, I can't say that's such a bad thing. Obviously, there's a lot of gameplay elements that were reused, but in different contexts. As such, every level there's something new, something fresh, something that makes sure we don't get tired from any going-ons. And this is why, even though mechanically Spider-Man might not be a perfect title, it's still very gripping and engaging. When I was a child, I played Spider-Man a lot. I can't even imagine how many times I must have replayed the whole campaign start to end, and that's considering the version I had was with a pretty nonsensical unofficial translation. But hey, in Eastern Europe of those times, skull and crossbone providers were sometimes the only way to play games, so it is what it is. For what it's worth, I still enjoyed the hell out of it. And I still enjoy Spider-Man now! Yeah, it's a bit clunky. Yeah, it doesn't have the narrative and moral depth I'd prefer in a Spider-Man adaptation. And let's face it, those symbiote enemies are very annoying despite making sense on a foundational level. But as a whole, Spider-Man is just pure, simple fun, and there's really nothing wrong with that. More than that, it seems the game was created with true love towards the source material, which imbues it with a certain energy that one can't help but feel when playing. Just an all-around good time. One thing I like doing also just for some good time is rating games with my personal scoring system I call Stasocritic. It's divided into 5 different categories of various weights, each with a score from 0 to 10 that have their own specific criteria. The first category is design. It has a weight of 4 as how a game is structured and played defines your experience the most. I will assign a 7 to Spider-Man. The foundation set up for Spider-Man's core moveset is great, and levels never get old. Every 5-10 minutes we're doing something new, so variety is not an issue. That being said, there are 1-2 main implementation flaws for my liking. Bosses can be very annoying if one doesn't utilize cheese tactics, manual aiming can be tricky, and with auto-aim, Spider-Man often shoots webs where we don't want to. While the game tries to adapt, the lack of camera controls is still felt throughout. It's not perfect, but with some additional time and polish, it totally could be. The issues are not deep-rooted. Then we have emotions, a category with a weight of 3, which is pretty important still since our personal feelings matter a lot for the overall enjoyment. I will assign a 9. I guess this part is pretty self-explanatory. I had lots of great fun time with Spider-Man, regardless of some annoyances there and there, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to revisit this title for a bit every now and then in the future. There's just something warm about it. The next category is Cohesion. It has a weight of 2 and focuses on how well all facets of a game are combined together into a singular, cohesive experience. I will assign a 7. Spider-Man does a lot of smart things, from utilizing a special fog in storytelling for explaining the PlayStation 1 technical limitations, to creating a toolkit for Spider-Man that really feels like it belongs to the character. There's even some nice little details like Venom avoiding spider sense. And just in general, the game is chock full of Spider-Man references and involves a bunch of people related to the character. But as fun as that is, that's also part of the reason why I can't assign a higher score to Cohesion. It's a mishmash of stuff, some of which isn't even important to the larger plot at hand, like Scorpion attacking Jameson. And sure, the game itself lampshades stuff like this, but still. The last criticism is closely connected to the context category, which is all about narrative, characters, story arcs, and so on. It might sound surprising given what I said previously, but I will assign a 7. The overall plot is basic, but sensible. Spider-Man gets framed, he tries to figure out what's going on, and on the way discovers that there's a plan to take over the world using symbiotes, which Spider-Man thwarts together with his allies. But what makes it really work is the writing. It's so campy that one can't help but be charmed by it. Everyone oozes personality, with Venom definitely being a favorite of mine here, and transforms the narrative experience into a sum bigger than its parts. Which brings us to the final category, aesthetics. That's naturally about visuals, sound, music, and so on. I will assign an 8. The overall visual style is very striking and colorful, which fits the comic book aesthetics. The voice acting is great, and the music is incredibly catchy. While there is a certain lack of polish in certain parts, like some voice lines playing more often than they should, faces tending to look weird in the original PlayStation 1 version, overall those aren't that big of a deal. A bigger problem though is that the majority of the game's second half takes place in sewers, basements, and sterile underground facilities. While of course there's nothing inherently wrong with those types of environments, they're used so much that it gets a bit drab and repetitive, sewers in particular, a regrettable blemish on an otherwise stylish game. Now, when all these scores are taken together, we get a final Stasocritic rating of 76, which in the context of my system means that this is a very good, solid title. I'd obviously recommend Spider-Man to Spider-Man fans, and just those who like pretty short and linear but very fast-paced and varied action-adventure experiences. Again, while perhaps this is not the most perfect game out there, it's just a lot of fun. And every now and then we all need some simple enjoyment in our lives.